Sign it, or there is no wedding. That was the sentence his father said to my daughter, calm, controlled, and loud enough for everyone at the table to hear. Not a private conversation. Not a respectful request. A public ultimatum. In that moment, I watched my daughter's hands begin to shake, her eyes searching for the one person who should have protected her, and finding nothing. What they didn't know, what they were completely unaware of, was that the empire they were trying so hard to protect didn't belong to them anymore. It hadn't for years. And the woman they thought had no power was the one holding all of it. My name is Elena Cruz. I'm 59 years old. A widow. And to most people, I'm just a quiet investor with a modest firm and a daughter I love more than anything in this world. If you're watching this, tell me where you're from and what time it is. I read every comment. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story about a prenup or a wedding. It's about the moment people reveal who they truly are when they think they have control, and what happens when they realize they don't. They believed they were negotiating from the top of the table. They believed we had no leverage, no choice, no power. But power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits, quietly, patiently, until the exact moment it needs to be seen. Now let me tell you how everything actually began. It didn't begin with the prenup. It began long before my daughter ever met his family. In a time when survival mattered more than pride. When my husband died, I was left with nothing but responsibility and a 13-year-old girl who looked at me like I still had all the answers. I didn't. But I learned quickly that not having answers doesn't mean you stop moving. It means you become the one who finds them. I built everything from the ground up. Not loudly. Not in ways that attracted attention. But quietly, strategically, one decision at a time. While Sophia grew into someone kind, thoughtful, and strong in ways I could never teach directly. I built something else in the background, an investment firm that specialized in failing companies, the kind no one else wanted, the kind people walked away from because they looked too complicated, too unstable, too close to collapse. That's where I found Whitmore Holdings. On paper, they looked powerful, established, intouchable. But beneath that surface, they were fragile, buried in debt, mismanaged, one step away from losing everything. No one saw it. Or maybe they did, and chose not to get involved. I did, quietly, through layered acquisitions, silent partnerships, and contracts no one bothered to read closely enough. I began to take control. Not in a way that changed the name on the building, not in a way that made headlines, but in a way that mattered. Control isn't always visible. Sometimes it lives in percentages, in voting rights, in decisions that don't look important until everything depends on them. And while I was building that control in silence, Sophia was building her life in the open. She met Lucas without knowing any of this. She fell in love with someone she believed was different from the world he came from. And for a while, I let myself believe it too. Because he was polite, respectful, careful with his words. But families like his don't change. They adapt. They wait. And when they finally reveal themselves, it's never subtle. It's deliberated. And by the time they did, it was already too late for them to understand who they were dealing with. The warning signs didn't arrive all at once. They never do in families like his. They come, wrapped in politeness, hidden behind smiles, disguised as concern, The first time I met his parents, they were gracious, welcoming, measured. But there was something beneath it, something calculated. His mother asked Sophia questions that sounded harmless on the surface, but each one carried weight. About her education, of her career, her plans. Not out of interest, but assessment. His father said less, but watched more. The kind of man who doesn't need to speak to make a judgment. I saw it immediately. Sophia didn't. Love has a way of softening what should feel sharp. She told me they were just traditional, that they needed time, that Lucas was different. And Lucas, he didn't correct her. That was the first real crack. Because silence, in that kind of environment, isn't neutrality, it's alignment. As the wedding approached, the dynamic shifted. Slowly at first, then more openly. They began to take control of details that didn't belong to them. The venue, the guest list, the tone of the entire event. Everything had to meet their standards, their expectations, their image. Sophia compromised more than she should have. I saw it, but I also saw the way she still believed it would work. That love would balance everything out. That respect would come with time. But respect doesn't grow in environments where it was never planted. 2 weeks before the wedding, they invited us to dinner to finalize everything. I knew the moment we sat down that something had changed. The atmosphere was different, tighter, more formal, less like a family meeting, and more like a negotiation. Then his father placed a folder on the table and slid it toward Sophia. No explanation, no context, just expectation. Inside was the prenup. Not a simple agreement, not a mutual protection. A document designed to strip her of any standing, any claim, any security. Clause after clause written with one purpose: to ensure she would walk away with nothing, no matter what happened. I watched her read it. I watched her hands begin to tremble. And then I heard the sentence that changed everything. Sign it tonight, or there is no wedding. Not a suggestion, a decision. And in that moment, I realized something very clearly. They weren't asking. They were testing how much they could take before anyone pushed back. I didn't react the way they expected. I didn't defend Sophia. I didn't argue about the terms. I didn't even open the document again. Instead, I closed the folder slowly and placed my hand over hers to steady it. Then I looked directly at his father and asked one simple question. Are you sure you want to turn this into a business negotiation? The room went still for a fraction of a second. Then he smiled. Not kindly, not apologetically, confidently, like a man who believed he controlled every variable in front of him. With families like ours, he said, everything is business. That was the moment everything became clear. Not just what they were doing, but how far they were willing to go, and how little they understood about the situation they were standing in. Sophia turned to Lucas then, her eyes searching for something, support, disagreement, anything that would suggest he wasn't part of this. But he didn't speak. He didn't interrupt. He didn't even look surprised. And in that silence, something broke. Not loudly, not visibly, but permanently. I felt her hand tighten under mine, not in panic anymore, but in realization that this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was intentional, controlled, planned. I nodded once, calmly, as if I was considering their position. Then I said something they didn't expect to hear. "Give us until the wedding day." His father leaned back slightly, satisfied, already believing the outcome was inevitable. "Of course," he replied. "Take your time." That confidence, that certainty, was exactly what I needed. Because while they believed pressure would force a decision, they didn't realize I had already made mine. That night, I didn't comfort Sophia the way a mother normally would. I didn't tell her everything would be okay. I told her the truth. "You will not sign that document." She looked at me, confused at first, then searching, as if trying to understand something deeper beneath my words. "Why?" she asked quietly. I held her gaze and answered in a way that changed everything. Because they don't understand who they're dealing with. The next morning, I made one call, then another, not emotional, not reactive, strategic, légale confirmation, board notifications, voting rights verification, structures that had been in place for years, unnoticed, unquestioned, because no one had ever bothered to look closely enough. I didn't rush. I didn't confront. I let them continue. Let them believe the pressure was working. Let them think Sophia was cornered. Because the most dangerous position for someone like them is confidence built on incomplete information. By the time the wedding day arrived, everything was already set. They thought they were walking into a final decision. In reality, they were walking into the moment everything they believed would collapse. The ceremony was minutes away when everything began to shift. Guests were seated. The atmosphere carefully controlled. Every detail reflecting the image his family wanted to project perfect. Polished. Intouchable. I stood beside Sophia, watching her breathe slowly, holding herself together in a way that made me both proud and furious at the same time. They thought they had already won. They thought this was just the final step before she signed away her future. Then his father approached us. Calm as ever. That same controlled expression, that same quiet authority. "Have you made your decision?" he asked. Not looking at me, only at her. As if I didn't matter. As if I never had. Sophia didn't answer. She didn't need to. Because that was the moment I stepped forward. "Before we continue," I said quietly, "there's something we need to clarify." He frowned slightly, irritated more than concerned. "This isn't the time," he replied. "It is," I said, and right on cue, his CFO appeared, moving quickly, his expression tight in a way that didn't match the controlled environment they had created. He leaned in and whispered something into his father's ear. I watched it happen in real time, the shift, confusion first, then disbelief, then something much deeper. The kind of fear that only shows when control disappears. "That's not possible," he said under his breath. The CFO didn't argue. He just repeated the number, 62%. Silence followed. Not awkward. Not uncertain. Absolute. The kind of silence that ends conversations before they begin. I met his father's eyes for the first time since the dinner. "You were right about one thing," I said calmly. "With families like yours, everything is business." He tried to recover, to speak, to regain control of a situation that had already moved beyond him. But power doesn't return just because someone wants it back. "You don't own the company," I continued. "You haven't for a long time. Around us, nothing moved. But everything had changed. The guests didn't understand. Sophia didn't fully understand, but he did. And that was enough. Because in that moment, the man who believed he was setting terms realized he had never been the one in control. The wedding didn't stop. It couldn't. Not anymore. Because the moment the truth surfaced, everything they thought they controlled disappeared. The ceremony continued, but not under their terms. Not under their power. For the first time, they were the ones adjusting, the ones reacting, the ones realizing they had built their authority on something that was never truly theirs. The next morning, the real conversation didn't happen in a ballroom. It happened in a boardroom. Quiet. Precisi. Final. Control shifted exactly where it had always been meant to go just now. Everyone could see it. His father didn't argue. He couldn't. Because numbers don't lie. Ownership doesn't negotiate. And reality doesn't bend to pride. Money reveals who people really are. But power reveals how they treat others when they think there are no consequences. I didn't destroy them. I didn't need to. I simply allowed the truth to exist in a room where it could no longer be ignored. Sophia stood beside me through all of it. Not as someone being protected, but as someone who finally understood her own worth. She didn't sign the prenup. She didn't have to. Because respect is not something you earn by giving up your power, it's something you refuse to lose. As for me, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't fight the way they expected. I just waited. And when the moment came, I let the truth speak for me. So let me ask you, if you were in her position, would you have signed it or walked away? If this story meant something to you, don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, sometimes the strongest move isn't proving your power. It's revealing it at the exact moment they least expect.